My guest this morning is Antoine Larosiliere. And Antoine G. Larosiliere is a Haitian immigrant who is married with 4 beautiful children. Mr. Larosiliere graduated from Hempstead High School in 1993 after 4 turbulent years. I'm going to ask you about that wording. He then attended SUNY Old Westbury, where he discovered the pride of being Haitian. After graduating with a BS in psychology in 2000, he used that knowledge to demonstrate his sales skills in the financial service sector. During his 5 years in financial sales, he obtained several licenses that included a real estate license, insurance sales licenses, Series 6 and 63. He received a certificate of completion for the CFP program at Molloy College, and an MA in General Special Education grades 1 through 6, both in 2005. I'm going to put in this plug. I'm looking for a 4th grade teacher if you want to transfer. Anyway, his wife is an educator, and he himself has been teaching for over 20 years. Antoine currently teaches in the Bronx, where humor is a huge component of his teaching methods. I love it. Yep. We're going to get along great because I love humor as well. As an educator, Mr. Larosiliere created Empowering Communities Against Bullying, ECAB, an anti-bullying program which was a major inspiration for his novel, The Bully Experience, Daniel's Story. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reading Circle microphones, Mr. Antoine Larosiliere. Antoine, good morning again. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. I tell you what, thank you for contacting me and letting me know about your work. And I am glad to have you on here as well, especially because a couple of things. One, you're an educator, and you also have a background in other things as well. And you're a Haitian and African-American educator as well, of which, that's why I was teasing, but I'm dead serious. I have a 4th grade vacancy, and we're always looking in particular for black males in the classroom so that particularly kids in urban areas see someone who look like them standing in front of them. And that's not to say that they can't learn from somebody who doesn't look like it, but they need to understand they can aspire and reach to be that person standing in front of them too. And as I said, just reading in your background, I'm looking here in terms of your various licenses in finance and real estate, so forth and so on. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So as I share with you, usually my first question is kind of like, where did all these interests and where did all this begin? Is this something like when you were a child that you set out to become, or did as you went along your journey, you kind of looked at things and saw things or became interested in things and said, hey, I want to do that. So kind of talk to us a little about, before we even get into the book, you had a BS in psychology, so forth and so on. Matter of fact, let's go back to, because your wording was interesting when I was doing the promo, and I said after 4 turbulent years. I said, okay, I'm going to ask him about that. So let's talk a little about where everything began.
Oh, wow. Well, I went to Hempstead High School. But before Hempstead High School, I went to Alberta B. Gray Schultz Middle School. And so, all right. So when my parents first came to the country, we lived with my uncle in Uniondale. Uniondale was, nice town. Everybody, it was a nice town, very nice upbringing. Right. Nothing out of the ordinary. But then when my parents finally bought their own home, it was in Hempstead. So I transferred to Hempstead. I believe it was 6th grade, and Hempstead was a whole new world compared to Uniondale. I'm talking about thugs left and right. I'm talking about thugs left and right. And the thing about it is, I had a bit of a smart mouth, and I was a little pretty boy, and that didn't mesh well in Uniondale. I mean, that didn't mesh well
in Hempstead.
So, and I didn't know anybody. Oh man, it was rough. Between the bullying I received, and I didn't know anybody. Then my first friend, and which is till this day one of my best friends. He was, I guess, considered a nerd. So, and he ended up being my best friend. So it was like it was rough. So I went from being one of the cool kids in Uniondale to pretty much being bullied and all kinds of stuff when I got to Hempstead. And it wasn't until, I started to get to know, I guess, a lot of the other class clowns and started to assimilate where some of the bullying started to, subside a little bit. But Hempstead was rough. I believe, from what I remember, when I went to Alberta B. Gray Schultz Middle School, it was one of the top 10 worst middle schools in New York State, from what I remember. And my high school has been taken over by the state. Supposedly, I don't remember what happened. It's been so long, but from what I'm hearing, the gangs got so bad at Hempstead High that it had to be taken over.
Well, I am extremely familiar with that because I've had the opportunity to lead schools that have fallen into that category. I mean, just in the Patterson area, just some extremely rough schools. I can remember being in a school and being deemed persistently dangerous by the county. And we had to put together an action plan, and we had to turn it into the county and say, what are we going to do to fix this? And so I totally relate to what you're describing because I've experienced it in the Patterson Public School District as well. I also heard you say you came here when you were 6. I'm always interested because, my former wife was from Jamaica, and I would always ask her, what was it like to just get up and come to an entirely different country? And so I'm always fascinated and so you say you were about in 6th grade, so you spent some time in Haiti before coming to the U.S. What was that like for you?
In Haiti, or when I first arrived here?
Well, both. I mean, the fact that you came from I'm always fascinated. I don't want to move to the next block, and yet there are those of you who have moved from different countries. What is that experience like?
I was so young when we left Haiti that all I have is good memories of Haiti. I don't remember having any trepidations or discomfort about coming to America. I don't remember. But what I do remember is when we first arrived in America, the first day of school, my mother dropped my sister and I off in the schoolyard. And then all she said to us was, if anybody says anything to you, just say yes or no. I guess those were the only 2 words that my mother knew. And I remember standing in the schoolyard with my sister, my older sister, she's 2 years older than me. We were completely confused and lost. And we were given 2 words, yes and no. And when the bell rang to go inside, everybody went inside. And one girl saw me and my sister just standing in the schoolyard. She was like, let me see what's up with these 2. And every question she asked us, my sister and I were just, yes, yes, no, no, yes, no. And sometimes I would say yes, and my sister would say no to the same question. We looked completely confused. And that's all I remember.
But see, that's what I'm saying. Stories like that to me are fascinating because, like I said, I hate moving, and I've had to move a few times, but I hate moving even around the corner. And now you're talking about going, and I've also had the opportunity to travel the world. So I know what it's like to be in different countries and not speak their language. I mean, I remember being in France. I remember being in Germany. I remember being in Switzerland and in Puerto Rico and on down the line where I did not speak their language. I may or may not know a couple of words, just like your mom told you and your sister yes and no. But those stories are fascinating to me. So you're the only 2 kids now left in the playground. Everybody else is gone in. You have no idea what's going on because you're in a new country, new school system, so forth and so on. That's why I asked the question, because I'm just always fascinated by folks who make the pilgrimage from one country to another. And what was that experience like? And as you were telling that story, I'm sitting there literally visualizing it. I could see the rest of the school going in and you and your sister standing out there.
Yes, and it's crazy because all I remember from that point on is I was in ESL. right, in an ESL class for about 2 years, I believe. And all I remember is having a crush on two Spanish girls, one named Cynthia, one named Martha, and next thing you know, I was speaking English. I went from yes and no, and I was speaking That's all I remember.
Am I to connect that you're speaking English you learned because of those girls? Or you're just, are there two different events? You just remember those girls?
I have no idea. All I remember is having a crush on Cynthia and Martha, and within 2 years, I was speaking English. I had.
What was your native language? French or Creole?
French and Creole.
French and Creole, okay, because in Haiti, that's what the language is. And so so that's why I guess your mom said yes and no. That's two English words, yes and no. So even though you may not have understood what you were being asked, that's why one of you would say yes, the other would say no. Makes total sense. Like I said, I've been to foreign countries, and it isn't. I've been trying to learn Spanish now for let me see if I have to do the math. Let's see if I take 18 from 61. Probably over 40 years I've been trying to learn Spanish. And I know a few words that I can get off. And one, I can't speak it quickly. In other words, they speak very fast. So I've been trying to get it fluent and fast, and that has not worked yet. I can speak it slow and broken. But my point is, when you're in a different place within a different language, that is difficult. At least to me. I mean, there's some people, I remember one of the trips that I went on overseas, the tour guide spoke 5 languages. It was amazing. She spoke 5 languages. I'm like, wow. But, okay, so you get here, you had the crush on the girls, you went through a tough high school. And how did you kind of decide? So did you change over into education, or are the other licenses, like, as we call our side hustle? Or did you start in there? Like for me, I started in corporate America before I switched over. Were these what you were doing and you switched over, or were you always a teacher and these were kind of your side things?
I had no interest in being an educator. When I was in college, I had no interest in being an educator. The truth be told, the only reason why I even went to college is because of my Haitian upbringing. Because I remember me and my friend, we were songwriters. And I remember one of our first producers was like, "You guys are great songwriters." Matter of fact, it was one of my Mobb Deep's first producers was one of our producers. And I remember Slick saying to us when I was a senior in high school, he was like, "Listen, you guys are great writers. There's tons of people who need material. Just stay in the studio with us and write for everybody who needs material." And I remember saying to Slick, "Are you kidding me? I'm Haitian. If I don't go to college, my mother will kill me." Right? So that was the end of my songwriting endeavors, I guess. And then I went to college, and it was hard choosing a major because for some reason I wanted to go into business, but I really wanted to understand. I wanted something that was going to benefit me business-wise, interpersonal wise, family-wise. I figured if I understood people, then it doesn't matter what career path I take. People are in every career. As long as I understand people, I should be able to help my family, my kids, the people around me better. I'll be able to understand them better, and I'll be able to navigate whatever career path I choose a little bit better because I have a better understanding of people, which is why I chose psychology. Acting was my minor in college, but once again, my acting teachers were like, "Listen, you're talented. You have the look. You should really pursue this." And I was like, "I don't know. If I don't get a real job once I graduate, the whole struggling waiter thing having little odd jobs and just to go on auditions. If I don't have a real job by the time I graduate, the Haitians going to look at me crazy.
Yeah, keep going on, because like I told you, what happens is as your responses generates my next question, and your response to that, I have an experience that I'll share with you whenever you're done, but you're absolutely right. And I went through something very similar whenever I went to college in terms of picking a major. My original intent was to major in either English or music. My father was like, absolutely not, because you either have to be good as Michael Jackson or either, you'll wind up teaching, and teachers make no money. And so that's why I ultimately chose business administration for my undergrad. And I thought I was getting away from math, not realizing it was one of the more math-intensive majors. So I totally resonate and feel exactly what you're saying in terms of expectation.
Right, exactly. So, so I graduated with a psychology degree, and then once I had the psychology degree, I'm like, okay, all right, now it's time to start trying to make some money and trying to understand how money works. So the first thing I did was I got a real estate license. I did real estate for about 6 months. And within the 6 months, I sold an apartment. I was able to get a listing, which supposedly is difficult to achieve in your first couple of months in real estate. But I was able to get a listing. I sold an apartment or two, and then I was recruited into financial services. And then I got my insurance licenses, my Series 6, Series 63. And that was okay for a while because I was learning how the financial markets work. I was learning how money works. So that was good for me. Also, my knowledge in psychology was really helping my my sales ability. So the first year, I would say, when I was in financial services, I was selling using psychology. I was so pretty much I was analyzing the customer and pretty much just selling them what they were interested in. But the longer I stayed in financial services, I didn't even have to do that. Once you do a proper asset allocation on a client, you'll realize exactly how much they can afford, and all you have to do is line up their affordability with their needs and their interest. You line up the three, it's a no-brainer sale. So I got to a point where I was selling at a 90% clip in an industry where you sell only 30%.
Wow.
So I was a hell of a salesman, but I was a little misguided, I think, by my manager, because one of the things about when you're in finance, they start you off in your natural market, so you start selling people that you know, right? And all the people I knew didn't have any money like that, So you start selling in your natural market, but then your manager helps you create a target market. So my target market was resident doctors. You know what I'm saying? Because you grow with them, and they have such a high income potential, so on and so forth. So while I was selling at a high clip, but it was very, very small accounts. It was small accounts because the people that I knew didn't have any money. So while I was trying to transition to the resident doctors market, what I was doing, I was making sure everyone had the best product. Whether we made more commissions from one product or another, it didn't matter to me. My focus was making sure clients had the best product. Resident doctors had the best product. And from what I remember, Brookshire had the best disability insurance product on the market. So that's what I was trying to sell them. But I think I was working at MetLife at the time. MetLife of course, we get a bigger commission from selling a MetLife disability. And my manager went behind my back, and while I was getting ready to sell those resident doctors the Brookshire product, my manager went behind to try to pitch the MetLife product, since we got a bigger commission from it, and I lost all those resident doctors. And then shortly after that, September 11th happened. And then a lot of my clients that had a lot of money invested with me, right? They had to pull out because many of them, I guess, lost their jobs, and they started the money that they were going to invest in the products they had to use to supplement their discretionary income.
Right.
So I saw a good $10,000 in commission go up in smoke in a matter of a couple of weeks. So that's when I was like, okay. And this was about after like 5 years being in financial service. I was like, okay, I need to do something that's going to provide me a lot more stability.
Right.
Because even though I'm one hell of a salesman, it's time to start, because at the time I had a different girlfriend at the time that I was proposed, not my wife now. So I was looking to try to, be more serious with her and getting engaged. And I was like, I have to be a little bit more stable to be able to do that. So that's when I was like, you know what? Maybe I should go into teaching as a backup while I work on a CFP. So the CFP was a Certified Financial Planner. It's a designation that would allow me to be more of a salaried employee as opposed to just based on commission, right? And I figure while I'm pursuing the CFP, I also will pursue a master's in teaching just so I could always have a backup to finance. So I was literally in two different colleges at the same time, working on a degree and a designation at the same time. But it's stuff like that is way easier to do when you don't have 4 kids.
Correct. You're right. Totally different ball game. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, it was way easier to do. The things I could do, man, when I wasn't married and didn't have any kids.
Oh, yeah, it's a totally different world because I've been in and out of it, a couple of times, single, married, married, single. And so, I've been in it. They're totally different worlds. They really are. And depending on what the age of the kids are, like at this point, my kids are all grown. So it really didn't matter as much as it did like whenever the kids were little. But you're absolutely right in terms of time and effort and money and everything else that, it takes, to do education. It's interesting in terms of teaching, and I always let me go back though. And in terms of like when you were talking about your mom and Haitian and going to college and everything, immediately what came to mind is I have a student in my school right now that I'm going to have you talk to him if he comes back this year because he's from Haiti and he is always smart. Now he's smart. He can do. He's just admittedly lazy. And I always tell him, and I know there's no such thing as a good stereotype, so I get it. But my experience with most Caribbean people, they are very well driven and have a very high work ethic. So whenever we do come across one that cuts across or either is totally opposite of the stereotype, we're kind of like, okay, what's going on here? So this young man, we're constantly challenging him with, Leo, we know in terms of folks who are from Jamaica and Haiti and Bahamas and some of the other Caribbean countries, and most of the folks we know coming from those countries, they are driven. They are, even his own mother has her own business, so forth and so on. So we just totally don't understand why is it he's like content with being a little slacker. So I'm going to have you talk. I'm going to hook you up with him to, help him understand because we constantly challenge him. But exactly what you were saying, most of the time when I come across a Caribbean person, that is exactly their thinking. Like, I have to do well.
Yeah, so I put a lot of my dreams aside just to pursue practicality.
Right.
Because I was Haitian.
That's exactly right. And so I connect with you because I did the same thing. Now, ultimately, I did wind up coming back into teaching. I did 15 years in corporate America, had all the perks in the world, was meeting famous people, traveling, but it wasn't doing nothing for me on the inside. So for me, because teaching always was, the education was always a first love, I actually wound up coming back to my first love whenever I did alternate route. Now, wait a minute, you didn't do alternate route. It sounds like you were pursuing the two degrees together. Or did you have to do alternate route?
What do you mean by alternate?
Alternate route was whenever, like, my original major was business administration. I was in corporate America. I had not majored in education. So most of the time with teaching, you have to have majored in education to go straight into teaching. Whenever you come out of a different field, you now have to take the education courses. Like, you'll get a temporary certificate, but between that time, before they make it standard, you have to take these education courses and so forth and so on. You have to get a mentor, and there's a whole process you have to go before you get your teaching license. At least that's the way it is in New Jersey. And so that's what I had to go through whenever I left corporate to now come into education.
Okay. It's a little bit different in New York. It's a little different in New York. I started out subbing.
Right.
I started out subbing, and because of my presence in the classroom, the principals were constantly wanting me to be permanent.
Yes. That's what we do when we get a good person. Yes.
Oh, we need you to be permanent. Oh, so on and so forth. And I was like, you know what? It'll provide some stability. So it started off me subbing, and you don't need teaching credits to sub.
Correct.
And once you're in the school, now the principals just want you to become permanent. So now you have to get it. I do not believe to go into a master's in education. I do not believe any undergraduate courses were necessary at all.
Yeah, but did you have to take, for New Jersey, and I think it would be New York too, it was called the praxis. Did you have to take the test, the state test?
Yes.
Okay, so then I had to do all of that, and then we had to take these courses for like a year that would, I guess, acclimate us to education. But it's kind of sort of similar. But you're absolutely right, because as a principal, when we do get a good substitute, yes, we do encourage them to become permanent or to go ahead and be, licensed. That makes sense in terms of how you want to, because now, and this is where the psychology degrees come back in handy again, because you're working with people and you understand. That's why it makes sense that you would be good in the classroom.
Exactly. And the thing about it is, so I started, I was a permanent teacher by the time I finished the CFP. I got my master's degree. I finished the CFP program. And now I had a decision to make, because I was teaching for about 2 years at this point, like full-time, like permanent. I was for like 2 years at this point. And now it was time to study for the board certification. So getting the CFP certificate only allows you to qualify to sit down knowledge-wise for the CFP board certification, and to actually study for that, you pretty much got to put your life on hold for about 8 months.
That's exactly right.
So I had a decision to make. Is this something I really want to complete? Getting us, being CFP board certified and going back into finance, or do I want to stay as a teacher? And what I realized, as a teacher, I got used to actually working with good people.
Right.
That I decided not to go back to finance. The thing about finance, even though I was one hell of a salesman, right? It was me and maybe the one woman in every office that was really doing right by the client. Everybody else was pretty much just trying to make as much money as they can possibly make.
Makes sense.
Right. So the integrity wasn't really there. And and at the core of me, I'm a good person, and I like surrounding myself with good people.
Right.
And in teaching, I was actually surrounded by good people, and I liked the feel of that. So I decided not to go back in finance. So I decided to stay teaching. That's where the transition ended up happening.
Well, you said a key word then, that was core. And you really do have to go with your core. I mean, I'm in a doctoral program now that's kind of like an offshoot of when I did the MAd years ago, which kind of gets at to who you are as a leader is who you are as a person. And that's really the foundation of the coursework and the curriculum is really getting to know who you are as a person. What's at your core? Because like you just said, what's at your core is what's going to come out. Now, if at your core is I'm going to get as much as I can, I don't care who I screw over, then that's the way you're going to operate versus what you just described as yourself, that, you know what, I know at my core I'm a good person. I need to be around good people. And the other piece of that is you're getting a chance to work with children. And if there ever was a place that they need to have folks that have core values, it's with children.
Yeah, indeed. And working with children is can be very rewarding.
It is. Now, what grade, because I see your certified grades 1 through 6. So what grade do you teach?
I teach 6th grade, mostly special ed and sometimes general ed.
Okay, so you got 6th grade's bad. All right. Like I said, I have a 4th grade vacancy. I'll cut you over to New Jersey. But in any event, but I mean, first off, and we said this early on, either whenever I was on the phone with you, in terms of having a black male in front of students who are mixed, whether, white, black, Spanish, whatever, is critical, is important because statistically, for the most part, what you have are white females who are in the classroom. The numbers are changing a little bit, but not much. And then when you start, as you even start getting into blacks and whites, but then when you start breaking it down by gender, the numbers really do get small in terms of black men in the classroom. And that's for a lot of reasons and now salaries have come up because years ago, the salaries just were not there. The men were like, yeah, we're going to be breadwinners. We need to have a salary, to keep our homes running, and teaching ain't it. So it's kind of gotten better over the years in terms of salary, in terms of teaching. So more men are coming into the field, but it is really needed for kids to see males in the teaching profession. It really is. It is critical. When I was in the classroom, I taught 8th grade language arts. That's what I taught before I was promoted into administration. But it is definitely needed. And so I applaud you, one, that you're in the classroom, and which leads us into your project. And there was something you said, even whenever you said when you first got to the country or changed over from Uniondale to Hempstead, you were talking about being bullied because that's where they had the thugs and so forth and so on. So I see you created at your school ECAB, Empowering Communities Against Bullying. Let's start there, and then we'll work our way to the book.
Okay. Let's see here. The ECAB program. How did the ECAB program come about? Well, put it this way. Normally I don't, especially in front of my boys, when I cry, I want them to see it's about, something important, something of magnitude. Because I want my kids all to be in touch with their emotions.
Correct.
But at the same time, with my boys, the world is so difficult. I don't want them crying over every little thing.
Correct.
I don't want them being over emotional over every little thing because the world is just too, is going to be too hard on them as young black men. So with that being said, one of the few times that my kids always find me crying is when there's a school shooting. And I remember the pivotal one where I felt I had to do something was the Sandy Hook school shooting. I was driving with my kids in a car, and I could not stop crying. And they kept asking me, like, they my kids were shocked. And that's when I realized, I'm like, I have to try to do something. This is one of the things that I cannot, I can't take it, because of the simple fact that I have kids
right.
that are in school. And if something like this was to ever happen and my kids are affected by this, I would be forever broken. A part of me would be forever broken. So
correct.
You know what? I can understand how these parents, I can imagine how these parents feel, and I would never want that to happen to me. So there's got to be something that I can do that can help prevent some of these school shootings. So, my first couple of years of teaching, I was offered to go into administration or whatever because of a lot of stuff that I do, but I had no interest in going to administration.
Right.
Because in New York City, in Jersey is a little different. Like, I love what my wife and Castro are doing. I think they're in a position where they can actually do some great things. In New York City, it's not the same. It's one of the biggest school systems in the world, and how it's run.
Right.
To make the necessary changes, to lead the right way, it's almost impossible to do from my perspective.
Right.
It's extremely difficult to do, to lead the right way in the New York City a school system as administrator. So with that being said, like, how else can I make an impact? So I was like, you know what? The only anti-bullying programs, the decent ones that have been created, is for elementary school, focusing on kindness and so on and so forth. There's really nothing for the middle school. You know what I'm saying? And those are the ages where kids are really
that's right. That's right.
Really taking that turn.
Right.
They really need that impact. So I met with first I met with my wife. I was like, listen, I have this idea. Tell me what you think. I want to make a proposal to the principal. This what do you think? My wife was like, oh, that's a great idea. I went to my best friend. He's like, oh, that's amazing. And then I went to all the teachers in the building that I know are phenomenal teachers. I didn't go to the okay ones. I went to the best teachers in the building. It was like a good 5 of them. You know what I'm saying? Phenomenal teachers, master teachers. I was like, yo, listen, you guys know me. Here's the outline that I have for an anti-bullying program. Here are the components that I want to teach. Here are the subtopics and so on and so forth. What do you guys think? And all the teachers that I trusted, all the wonderful teachers that I trusted, which are pretty much administrators now, all of them except for me. They were like, yeah, this is on point. This is good. This is good. Yeah, make that pitch. We absolutely need this. And so it went from there, and then I started writing the novel as well to pretty much what's the term, supplement.
Right.
Supplement, because not the anti-bullying program is only for the 6th graders in my building.
Gotcha.
a lot of kids, are not going to be able to access my anti-bullying program.
Right.
So I had to do something to supplement that for the kids, for all the other kids. So that's where the anti-bullying novel came into play.
Well, it's because we're going to get into the novel in a couple of minutes, as we work our way to the end. But in terms of like the program itself, what are some of the, you don't have to get into like total detail, but what are kind of like some of the components? Because bullying really became big a few years ago when that student in Rutgers committed suicide. because he was constantly being bullied. And there's been other cases since then, but New Jersey really took recognition of that when that particular student at Rutgers committed suicide because he was being bullied. And I mean, we have a whole, and your wife would know about it, it's a whole HIB system, harassment, intimidation, bullying. It's called HIB. There's a whole system we have in place that, as soon as one finds out about it, there's a whole process that we have to go through in terms of investigation. And then we have the situations where parents don't understand the difference between conflict and bullying. Like, it's kind of like, well, that's the first thing they come in and say, my child being bullied. And it's like, well, let's see what's going on. And a lot of times it's unfounded because, like, your child was just as much in the mix as the other child was. So they weren't necessarily being bullied. They were in a conflict. They were in disagreement, or they both chose to get it in, but they weren't necessarily being bullied. But what are, like, some of the components? What does the program, what's in there that the kids do, or that you all do, or how does it work? And then I want to talk about what is the book about.
Okay, so ECAB stands it stands for Empowering Communities Against Bullying, but there's 4 main units. Okay, there's the first unit. I focus on teaching about what bullying is, what bullying isn't, all the different types of bullying, how to recognize it. Just like you said, they don't misconstrue conflict with bullying. They know exactly what bullying is, what it looks like, and so on and so forth. The second unit is the empathy unit. Because one of the reasons why bullying happened is because some kids are more empathetic than others, and some kids aren't empathetic at all. And research shows that empathy can be taught. Empathy is a skill, not a trait. So even though some of us, yes, are naturally more empathetic than others based on our upbringing, parenting, whatever, but it's also something that can be taught. You know what I'm saying? So in the empathy unit, we go through several experiences, several bunch of activities to build their empathy. Okay? Also have the snitching versus seeking help unit, that unit where the kids, one of the reasons why bullying persists is because nobody want to say anything because of this anti-snitching culture.
Correct. Yeah, our kids, like, while you're at that point, our kids have this little slogan over there that gets on my nerves: snitches get stitches.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's been out since like the 80s.
Right. And it's still there.
So, yes, exactly. So, in that unit, I actually teach them the history of snitching, how everything evolved and why we use the word snitch up until this day. So, like, I teach them about how the first slave catchers turned into the first police force. I taught them about the word snitch came from the Italians, and I show them, like, stool pigeon, squid, all the other. So
right.
It came from the mob world, okay? And I give them the exact definition of snitching, which is pretty much it's when you tell on somebody else, right? You tell on somebody who's involved in the same crime.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly right.
Who's involved in the same crime? And you tell on that person to reduce your sentence, to reduce your punishment. That's what snitching is.
Correct.
So then I break down to them what seeking help is. And we're like, listen, if somebody's doing something wrong, you're not, and you tell on them or you tell the authorities, that you're helping them. Okay? You're helping yourself. Okay? You're helping them, because if you don't stop them now, it's gonna get they're gonna start doing worse and worse things, and then
correct.
Then right? And you're helping the people in your community because they're hurting the people in the community. Okay, so it's you're helping the authorities solve a crime. So I teach them the difference between snitching and seeking help, and I destigmatize the whole snitching thing because that's key.
Good for you. You're absolutely right. That is key. Keep going.
The last unit is the resiliency unit. In the resiliency unit, now the resiliency unit is the most difficult unit because I have to teach these kids how to do things adults have a hard time doing.
Correct.
So one of the reasons, I don't know if you know the numbers, but one of the reasons why I was compelled to create an anti-bullying program is when I realized 75% of school shootings were happened because had to do with bullying or harassment.
Correct.
75% of school shootings.
That's correct.
So it was like, okay. Okay. All right. So, but a lot of these kids that are getting bullied aren't being taught how to be resilient. A lot of these kids that are getting bullied are not being taught how to be resilient, which is a problem because everywhere you go in life, bullying is not a middle school issue. It's not a elementary school issue, high school issue. It is a life issue.
Correct.
You're going to be dealing with this for the rest of your life. There's bullies everywhere we go. So if you don't learn how to deal with this, if you don't learn how to be resilient, it's going to be very hard for you to navigate life and truly be successful. You know what I'm saying?
No, you're absolutely right.
So the resiliency unit. So there's two things I do in the resiliency unit. I break down the whole psychology of the bully. They need to really understand who these bullies are, where they come from, what they're dealing with, things that they never think about.
Right.
Things that they never think about. So they realize it's not about them.
Right.
It's not personal.
Right.
Okay? It's not personal because if they take it personal, they can't employ the strategies that I'm going to give them.
Correct.
So the first thing I try to focus on in the resiliency unit is to really get them to understand the psychology of the bully, the background of the bully, so they do not take the bully's actions personally because they may not realize it, but they're not the only ones the bully is doing this to.
Right.
You're not the only one. And if they're not doing it to you, they're going to do it to somebody else. Okay? So the main thing the verbiage is, okay, they're not attacking you. They're attacking what you represent.
Correct.
You represent an opportunity for them to feel better about themselves.
Correct.
Because if they can control how you feel, if they can control your behavior, now they have some form of control in their life. Okay? Because they had no control of the abuse or the neglect they suffered. So this is them trying to gain some control in their life and getting you to feel the way they feel.
Wow. That's deep. And it's true.
So once they understand they can't take it personal, then I employ 6 strategies for them to deal with the bullies.
Now, see, that's interesting. I know we're using the term bully, but we could easily use the word abuser interchangeably with that because the same thing that you just described is the same thing that goes on with somebody who's abusive.
Right, exactly. That's why on my anti-bullying TikTok, right? I have a huge portion of my videos that focus on narcissism because narcissists are bullies. Right. Exactly. You know?
Exactly. Bingo.
So,
exactly right.
Yeah,
That's interesting. I mean, the program does really sound like it. And so right now it's just in your 6th grade at your school. It's not out there rolled out widespread. Not the program.
Okay.
Now, I know the book is out there, but I mean, the program itself is not out there, or is it?
No, the program is only in my school, but here's what I had to do the past couple of years. So the program during the school year really takes up a lot of my time.
Okay.
So, for instance, I teach it after school, right?
Oh, okay.
After school, because my school doesn't have the programming capability to make it an actual course, even though it's designed to be a course.
Okay.
It's designed to be a course. So I still teach it like a course after school, but we just don't have the 45-minute block 3 times a week.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We'd have to flip-flop it with either gym or technology, and gym and technology already flip-flop for each other.
Right.
So it's hard to program for, but it needs to be an elective. We just don't know how to program it to be an elective.
No, there's no, I mean, scheduling is a bear. It really is. I know exactly, again, I know exactly what you're talking about. Scheduling can be something, but and the fact that the kids stay after school and you stay after school, that's applaudable as well, because you are getting into some really deeper areas than a lot of the programs get into. I mean, it's kind of like, matter of fact, whenever you said resiliency, my question was going to be, resiliency does not mean doormat. And just given, I heard your explanation, I didn't have to ask it because you answered it.
Right.
That does not mean you're going to be a door. And the other piece that you said is absolutely true. And this is why the whole abuser thing came into mind was, and it's interesting that you said narcissism, because yes, narcissism, borderline personality disorder, some of these other things, absolutely. What you described is what's going on. That they're looking to now gain control over what they felt they lost control over when they were abused.
Exactly.
And so spot on. And it's interesting that you would be able to get that at that kid level to help them understand the dynamics of actually it's not just a matter of they're tough, they want to beat you down, so forth and so on. It's deeper than that. And that's what it sounds like your program is doing. It's going way deeper than just somebody being mean.
Exactly. So so in the past, 3-4 years, I was able to create an actual workbook, a teacher's manual, a counselor booklet, and this summer I'm finishing off the activity booklet, because some schools are not going to be able to implement it as a course. They're going to just need, like, some after school activities are going to benefit from the activities. So I'm finishing creating the activity booklet for the after school programs that just want to implement the activities. So once I'll be done with that by the end of summer, and this year I'm just going to try to get my data together, and then the major components of the program I'll be able to provide it to other districts as well.
Well, you need to try to get an audience with David Banks, with the school's chancellor. You need to. I don't know if you've had that opportunity now, but you need to see if you can get David Banks' attention. Because, I mean, really, just from a couple of minutes we've been talking about it, it sounds like I can understand why those 5 teachers and your wife and your friends and everybody that went through it said, oh, yes, I could see why just listening to you for these couple of minutes. So you need to get an audience with David Banks. I don't know how we can make that happen, but he needs to hear about your program if he hasn't already.
And you know what? The first year of the anti-bullying program, right? Again, it's for the entire 6th grade. And I was grading the kids like an actual course. I was grading them.
Well, okay.
If you don't show up, you don't pass.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But you know what? It is that important. And sadly, in our society, like, that's the only way to kind of get people to do is they got to, like, because I'm a proponent for just doing away with grades. But I mean, in order to get people to do anything, a lot of times you do have to put that stipulation on there, like, you will get a grade for this. It will count.
Right. The grade was only pass fail, but here's the problem we ran into. In the first year, the anti-bullying program was the most successful year because pretty much most of the kids came, except the few that didn't care if they got an F on their report card.
Right.
And that allowed us, because there's also each unit has an event that goes along with it. Because to me, the kids need more than the classroom teachings and the activities. They actually need events where they can apply a lot of
right.
So we have 4 events where they're going to actually apply a lot of their knowledge, a lot of the things that they've learned. But the events, even though it's hard to put on the events, because teachers pretty much got to work for free most of the time.
Right.
But the first year was so successful. We even got on in the Riverdale Press about all the work we're doing. But the problem we ran into is a couple of parents were like, hold on, why is my kid getting a grade if this is after school? Right?
Right.
And they started giving the principal problem, like, the parents that sees the impact of it, they're like, they didn't care.
Right.
But, you have those parents that's like, hold on, nah, you can't grade my kid if this is after school.
Right.
So then my principal backed off on the grading. And once you back off on the grading, and
you don't get participation.
Yeah.
Yep. I understand.
So instead of the whole 6th grade now, I'll have about 50 sixth graders. So we have 150 sixth graders average every year. So, but now, because I don't grade the kids, I get about 50.
Right.
And the reason why those fit, and 25, I would say, come because they see a lot of benefit from the program. They're learning and it's helping them. But the other 25, they pretty much come because of the incentive trips that we do.
Well, you know what? Whatever works, whatever, get them there, because at the end of the day, you want them to get the information. So in terms of the book now, The Bully Experience, Daniel's story, who's the target audience or age group for that? Is that for the younger kids, or is that for the 6th graders, or is that for anybody?
Middle school.
Oh, it's middle school. Okay. So The Bully Experience.
Right. I do not recommend it for under 5th grade.
Okay.
Under 5th grade. And if it's 5th grade, I would say a pretty studious, let's say a 5th grader that reads on a pretty high level.
Right. That makes sense.
But,
so the premise of because this book is for sale. Anybody can buy it. They can, whatever, various vendors, or order it or whatever. So don't give the whole book away. But is the premise pretty much the same thing of the program, or kind of, what is the Bully Experience about as we get ready to close out in a few minutes?
Okay. So the Bully Experience it's a series. I already started writing the second novel. What happened is, Daniel, who's the main character of the first of this novel, he tells about all these experiences that happens to him, right? From his lens, and then every book is going to come from a different character's lens. Now, the story is told with a lot of humor. A lot of humor. And the reason why is because I want this book, believe it or not, to me, I focused on the bullies.
Right, okay.
I focused on the bullies, the kids that don't want to read, the kids that don't want to learn. So I made it hilarious. And I also made it rhyme just so to feel like, you know what I'm saying, they're reading a rap song.
Right, exactly. Now, it's interesting, as I'm listening to you employed all the psychological tools in there, all your psychology background clearly, and you also said you were writing songs or a lyricist or making up songs when you were in school. Everything is coming into play. There's no experience that was wasted.
Exactly. So it ended up, I was never meant to be in finance and all that. My greater purpose, all of this was supposed to come together for me to try to save these kids' lives.
Exactly.
So the premise, so what happened is the bullies, as soon as they start reading, they're laughing. So they think the book is about just roasting people. Because there's tons of that. Okay? There's tons of that. I roast everything in that book. Okay? If somebody walks into a room, I'm roasting the the wallpaper. I'm roasting the chairs. I'm roasting the table. I'm roasting I'm roasting everything in the room. Okay, I'm roasting every piece of clothing somebody has on. I'm roasting everything in that book. So while the bullies are laughing, thinking, "Is this a joke book?" I'm throwing in tons of lessons.
Right.
Tons of lessons.
Right.
Tons. Now, the only part of the book that was a little difficult for me to write was the suicide chapter.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, the suicide chapter, because I don't have any experience with suicide. I've never had suicidal thoughts. So I had to really do some research, interview people that actually had suicidal thoughts and dealt with. I read like 10 suicide letters just to really, just to not do a disservice to the people really dealing with those problems. And I put in a lot of the things in that chapter that people who have those thoughts don't think about.
Right.
Don't think about. You know what I'm saying? So the premise of the novel, without giving anything away, is everywhere you go, you're going to have to deal with bullies.
Correct.
Okay? And even you may have some bullying tendencies. Okay? So, I guess it kind of mirrors my journey, because when I first came to the country, I got bullied, and then I became a bully. Right. Once I got cool in elementary school, you know what I'm saying, I joined some of the other cool kids, and we were bullying some of the other nicer kids or whatever. And then it didn't fit right with me. So then I left the cool kids, and then I went to the kids that we were bullying. I tried to teach them how to fight back. So I was in 3rd and 4th grade trying to teach these kids I used to bully how to fight back. Then they end up become my best friends.
Right.
You know, it just I went from being the victim to the bully to the defender. So I went through a whole journey, and then even as a parent, I went through a journey as well. And so that's what I need the kids to get out of it. Don't think you're exonerated from these bullying tendencies. Or no. We all have bullying tendencies inside of us. Okay, we have to recognize them. We got to check ourselves, and you have to be prepared to navigate this world full of bullies. You know what I mean? So yeah. So every chapter, I talk about another bully. Meet mama bully. Meet gym bullies. Meet cafeteria bullies. You name it. Yeah, church bullies.
Right.
Every chapter focuses on a different another part of the world where bullies exist. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what. What's that?
But while the kids are laughing, they're not realizing they're learning.
They're learning, but see, if particularly in the African diaspora. And probably it's true regardless if it's African or African-American, black, or it's probably true for anybody. The best way to get information across is through story. It's through humor. That's when folks really, a concept that they may not get if you were to tell it straight, but if you told it in story form, they would remember it because they would remember the story. So what I'm hearing from you is, with all the humor and everything in there, they don't even realize they're learning, they don't even realize the lesson, but they would be able to recall it because they would think back to what they laughed at.
Right. And I must say, about 2 years ago, Miss Isaac and I, we didn't have a book to read, because we get assigned books to read throughout the year to the students. And then at one point, we read what we had to read, and we didn't have anything else. And Miss Isaac was like, "Mr. L, let's just read our book. Well, let's just read your book to the kids." At first, I was hesitant because that particular group is rough. That particular group was rough. They don't like any book. They don't like any book, and they don't do their work, and they taking naps while you're reading. So I was hesitant because I didn't want them to do something that was so personal to me. I didn't want them to do that to something so personal. But I put my feelings aside. We read it to the class. I must say, it was the only book that year. I'm talking about as soon as the kids walk through the door, they're like, Miss L, are we reading the bully experience today? Are we reading the bully experience? Yo, they didn't want to do nothing.
Right.
Read.
I'm laughing because it's like students are students regardless of where you are, because I have some of those same ones.
Exactly.
So I tell you what, we are at the point in the interview where I'm going to shut the mic off. You have the opportunity to promote anywhere the book is available, any shout outs that you want to do, anything you want to do for the next couple of minutes. The only thing you cannot do is mention a price. You cannot say a dollar amount, but in terms of contact, how folks can reach you, websites, the program itself, if you want to talk about ECAB or the book or anything, letting folks know how to get a hold of it. This is your opportunity to promote. So I'm going to turn the mic off, and you have the next few minutes to do that, and then we'll be out of here. But that tickled me with the students because, yes, I guess we have those all over.
Yeah.
So it's on you to promote.
Okay. My name is Antoine Larosiliere. I am author of The Bully Experience Daniel Story. You can find me at thebullyexperiencemovement.com. There's all kinds of merchandise and articles on the website that will teach yourself and your kids how to navigate a world full of bullies, how to become resilient, how to become more empathetic, and even my TikTok, the Bully Experience TikTok. There's tons of videos on confidence, how to become more resilient, how to love yourself. Yes. So I could be found on TikTok at the Bully Experience Movement, and I could also be found on my website, thebullyexperiencemovement.com.
Well, man, thank you so much for rising early with me this morning. Tell your wife hello. Congratulations to you. I know you shared with me, when we were on the phone, that you just celebrated your wedding anniversary. So congratulations on that as well.
Thank you, sir.
And had a ball. When I tell you, the program is really needed. I love the fact that you went more in depth than just somebody being mean. And that's why I say it's definitely needed. The education in and of itself is needed. Folks really need to understand the psychology behind it. And you're right, absolutely right, in terms of, like I said, you hit the nail on the head with the narcissism and the need for control. And that need is driven from, at some point, they were being controlled that they had no control over. And now their mind has gone to a place that makes them now want to control somebody else. And like you said, the victim usually gives them that opportunity. But wonderful work. I applaud you. I'll have to some point schedule you back so we can continue on with the conversation. But thank you so much for joining me. And
thank you for having me, sir.
And I'm going. It'll be on my YouTube channel. And whenever I'm done, I'll email you the links, and you can do whatever you like with them.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Will do. You enjoy, sir.
All right. Take care.